Hello, welcome back to the It Girls Guide. Today, we are going to do a little story time. I just did an episode on dating in your 30s, and I don't want to be on my high horse here. I was giving advice based on my experience, but I feel like it's time for you to hear about some of my experience. I've dated a lot of really amazing men, and we'll do an episode about success stories or, the goodness of all the dating I've done. But I feel like it's time to tell some dating horror stories, right? We've all been there, but I think there's something about just commiserating together. We've all dated a shitty dude or two or had a bad date or two. And so this is just a fun little episode where I'm going to tell you some wild dating stories. There will be a lesson at the end because there always is. We can learn from everything, right? But sometimes we do something for the plot and it's just funny. All right. There's 3 stories I want to tell. I'm going to try to make sure I keep them kind of short and concise. We all know I like to yap. But 3 stories, 3 different types of guys and lessons I learned. Let's see, which one do I start with? I was trying to decide, do I start with like funniest or like mild and like go more aggressive? Maybe we'll do it in order of when it happened. How about that? Okay, let's see. Which one did I tell first? Okay. All right. The first story I'm going to tell you is about going on a date with a guy who just didn't like me. All right. We've all been there, or maybe some of you haven't. God bless you. But this guy just didn't like me. And he didn't know it. I had to figure it out for him. I think especially in today's age, there's social media, right? And dating apps and whatnot. You're putting your best foot forward. You're putting out an image of yourself. And I'm aware that my social media is not a full picture of me. I'm posting my hot girl shit. That's what Instagram is for, right? I'm posting my outfits, my vacations, whatever. And I recognize that can look shallow on social media. I hope that the person I'm with understands that is only a small part of me. Also, I tend to prefer to date men who don't have social media, so it's not really an issue. But that wasn't the case in this regard. I met him on, should we do names or nicknames? My nickname for him is mean, so I'm not going to say it. Okay, we're not going to say his name. We're going to call him Evan. This guy, Evan. Also, all the Evans I know are good people, so that's not a reflection of the name. But today we're going to call this guy Evan. I met Evan on a dating app, and we talked only briefly on the dating app, and he had immediately followed me on Instagram, and so I knew he had been looking at my stuff. And he was cute. He was, has the kind of job I was, interested in. He was like working in marketing. So it was something that it's kind of adjacent to what I was working in. So I was like, oh, we'll have something to talk about. We're passionate about the same things I'm interested in. I'm not someone who, I need to be attracted to someone, but I'm not someone who's really focused on looks. I'm focused on how much I'm attracted to someone, but that's not necessarily looks. So I go on this first date. I'm at a local members club, and I'll be honest, I do know the girl that runs the door at this members club, and I have to give her an anonymous shout out because that week I went on 3 dates at this same members club, and every single time she acted like it was the first time she had seen me. So shout out to her for that. But I go on this date, and I'm like, it's casual. No, I'm excited to meet him, but I'm not putting all my eggs in this basket, right? And the first thing he says to me is, wow, you look even better than your photos. And he said it in a way that he was shocked. I'm like, okay. And I made a joke. I was like, what, are you just like dating Instagram models like that are face tuning? Like, what's the deal? Meanwhile, he was about 20 to 30 pounds heavier than he said he was on his page, which wasn't an issue. I like a little cushion for the pushing when need be. But I was like, it was very clear that he was presenting himself immediately. If you've lied about one thing, meaning like the photos you have on your Instagram, the photos you have on your dating app, maybe there are some other things you might be lying about, right? But he was originally so engaging, so I was not really all that worried about it. And we had a really nice first date where I was excited about seeing more. Second date is where things started to kind of go awry, because now a few weeks have gone by, or maybe it was like 2 or 3 weeks. He's had time to sit on my Instagram, look at things. And I quickly started to realize that he had concocted an idea of who I am in his head, and it wasn't me, right? Not at all. And we're on this date and he's asking me questions, and it's not just like, oh, he thinks I'm a chill girl and I'm really more regimented. It was, he had built a story about my life in his head, and he would make a comment and I'd say, oh, I see how you can see that, but actually it's more like this. And he was almost like upset that I wasn't what he thought I was. And I realized pretty quickly when we started talking about our past and dating, he started telling me a story about a girl he always had a crush on when he was in high school. And he's describing this girl, and he's not describing me. Physically, he's describing me, but he is describing this woman who would flirt with him just enough to keep him like in the loop, but always was dating somebody else, was never giving him, the attention. And he expressed that he was a guy in high school who, wasn't that attractive, wasn't getting a lot of attention. And don't get me wrong, I love a man who was an uggo when they were younger. I love an ex-uggo. I love an ex-fat boy. They had to develop a personality. I'm an ex-uggo, okay? I'm cute now. I wasn't cute all the time. I had to develop personality. I love that in a man, but I don't love an insecure man. And it was very clear that this time period in his life had made him really insecure. And he's talking about this girl who was clearly the cute, popular girl who liked the attention from him, but would never really give him what he wanted. And I realize, oh, thinks he's describing me. And then he starts to talk about how him and this woman had reconnected recently. And this is where I knew the red flags started going off. He says how he reconnected with her recently, and he starts describing that, she isn't how she used to be, and how the veil was lifted, and she had a baby and gained all this weight, and her job wasn't that great. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, this man is just dogging this woman. And if you remember from my previous episode, I said one of my tips was just decide for yourself if you like someone and figure that out. And I very quickly realized, oh, I don't like him. But look, we're in the middle of dinner. I'm going to finish the dinner. I have gotten up from a date, but I was just very aware that he was trying to live out something through me, and I was not that girl. He thought, oh, now like the popular cute girl, I'm going to get her now because now I have this big job and I'm this person, whatever. When I'm like, I'm still the like nerdy girl who wasn't getting attention. I'm not the popular girl from high school that you're going to win over now and prove some sort of point. But it really turned me off that he was talking so negatively, not just about an ex, but about a woman in general. But we're having these conversations, and I keep correcting him about my own personal narrative and be like, oh, actually, no, my parents have money now, but I'm not this kind of like spoiled rich girl that you're kind of describing. Like, I didn't grow up with all this. I watched my parents work for things. Or, oh, he made some comment, oh, things must have been so easy for you in high school. I'm like, no, actually, I transferred schools because I was bullied so badly. Like, wasn't easy for me. And this whole time, when I would correct the narrative, he would kind of like poo-poo it. He'd be like, oh, well, that's weird. Or just make these kind of offhand comments. And towards the end of the date, I looked at him and I said, I don't think you like me very much. And he's like, what do you mean? And I was like, well, you're just, every time I've described myself or corrected the narrative, you seem not to enjoy it. He's like, no, that's not true at all. I'm so into you. And boy, he's trying to correct me. And then I start naming, I was like, well, I said I like this and you said you don't like that. Or I said, I've done this and you seemed a bit judgmental. He was still trying in the moment to kind of, I guess he was trying to win me back over, but it was so clear to me that he didn't like me. It just wasn't that apparent to him. And after the end of the date, I kind of said to myself, okay, I feel like he's getting that I'm not that into him. So I don't know that I'm gonna need to send an anti-ghost text, but went off the deep end because while we were walking, he was walking me back home and he was talking about a song. He sent me the song in real time. I said, okay, I'll listen to it later. I walk inside my house doing my skincare routine and I get a text that's like, well, what do you think? I'm like, I left this man 10 minutes ago. Why is he already texting me, asking me what I think about a song? I haven't done it yet, right? I haven't looked at it yet. And if he's just interested, fine. But I look at the message, I say, I'm going to finish my skincare routine before I answer this message. 3 minutes go by, question marks, more question marks. I don't answer yet. Again, I'm still washing my face. I have 12 steps, okay? There are 12 steps in my skincare routine, sometimes 13 if I'm exfoliating, okay? So it takes me 20 minutes to do my skincare routine, so I'm not responding to that text. Then he starts calling me. I realize he's panicking because he, for some reason, thinks that me not responding, maybe he picked up on the fact that I was unsure about him, but now he's just anxious. And because I already know at this point, he doesn't really like me. It's not about him being so anxious that I don't like him. He's anxious that his theoretical high school ex-girlfriend, whatever, isn't, liking him back. And at this point I say, oh, this is a little bit weird. Now he calls me again. Now he's called me, he's texted me twice, or technically 3 times. Once when I was still with him. He texted me 3 times, called me twice in a 30-minute period. This is a lot after I just left him 30 minutes ago. I'm turned off. It ends up happening again the next day. And this is, mind you, maybe 9 a.m. the next morning. And again, he's texting me. And that's when I end up sending my anti-ghost text, which then I promptly learned that he blocked me. But before he blocked me on Instagram, he sent me some let's say, unkind messages. And I guess he didn't realize that if I had already had my app open, I could see them. So I saw them before he decided to block me and they got deleted, and I did screenshot them. But the moral of this story is that I had decided immediately when I realized that he didn't like me, that I no longer liked him and I wasn't going to go down that road. But the horror dating story of this all is, and this is one of the milder ones, is really that he just didn't like me. And sometimes that happens, like, especially when I think in this day and age, social media is such a big part of dating, right? And we create these narratives for ourselves. We build up these people in our minds based on what we see on social media, which is such a small portion of who people actually are. And I've realized in dating now that I have to be, when I'm on these dates, I have to be very, especially if it's someone that has seen me on social media, I have to be very clear about who I am. And there's certain stories that I make sure now that I make sure to tell. For example, I know on my Instagram, I might be like wearing all these clothes and I'm on vacation and whatnot. It might look a certain way. I make a point on a first date to explain how I've made my money, what I do for work, that I'm not, some yacht girl, I'm not making my money from Instagram. I'm not, I don't have some dude paying for things, because it seems so crazy that someone would make that connection. But actually, this is something I also talked about with a friend on a podcast recently, my friend Bryn, who had said, like, why is it so unbelievable to people that a woman in her 30s could be making money, taking care of herself, paying her own bills? Why is that such a wild thing? But I realize in dating, people see my social media, concoct an image for themselves based on my social media or based on my dating app profile. And for whatever reason, that is a through line in the assumptions about me, is that some dude is paying for stuff for me, or that my parents are paying for stuff. And I could sit here and try to dissect what energy I'm putting out to make that, for someone to make that decision about me. Or I could say, I'm just going to make sure on a first date I correct that and make sure it's known. All right. Second story. Actually, I might have to tell 2 stories, because I was going to tell the story about the time that a guy brought another date on our date. But I kid you not, this has happened to me twice. So I might need to tell 2 stories. First story, This is from before I was married, and me and this guy are very good friends now, so it's all good. But I dated a guy who brought another person on our first date. And this is I had just moved to New York. Actually, it wasn't a first date, it was a second date. I first moved to New York, had run into this guy that I had known previously. Great dude. I was like, oh, he wanted to take me on a breakfast date. And that was the first time any guy had ever invited me to do anything other than like getting a drink. So I was super excited. We had a wonderful breakfast date before I went to work. I was like, great, this is exciting. Then he says, oh, we're going to hang out on Saturday. I'd love to take you out. We're going to have a night. Great. I should say it started with the day. I meet him and I'm almost embarrassed to say this, but fuck it. It's true. And this is 15, 16. So it was age appropriate at the time, but he invited me to go to the Standard. What's the club that LeBain, the club that was maybe still is upstairs at the Standard. And if you're familiar with New York, that club does have a hot tub in it. And that hot tub, not clean, not safe, not sanitary whatsoever. But I arrived at LeBain it must have been like 3, 4 p.m. Sun was still out on a Saturday. And this man was in said hot tub at LeBain. And mind you, I had been living in New York for like 3, 4 weeks at the time. I did not know that you're not supposed to get in the hot tub at LeBain. So I put on my little bikini and I got in that dirty ass, gross hot tub. And he had a friend there and there's another girl there. And I'm thinking the friend and this girl, we're on a double date now. We're all hanging out and we're being friendly. We're all talking to each other. And I'm texting my mom this whole time. And you guys hopefully saw the episode I had with my mom. I love her so much. And she was very reserved growing up. So she will egg on anything that I do now because she's like, oh, it's for the story. So I am giving my mom live updates at this date. My mom has a soft spot for this guy. Like I said, I didn't know him for a longer period of time. So my mom has a soft spot for him. And I'm like, Mom, we're in a hot tub. It's the middle of the day. And she's like, it's New York. Why not? Just go for it. Do it. So I'm like, okay, I'm going for it. And then I'm texting my mom and I'm like, there's other girls here. It's a double date, but I feel like she's like flirting with my date. Like, won't stop. And she's like, I don't know. Like, well, I mean, he's handsome. Like, why not? Maybe it's just like a natural flirtatious vibe. I'm like, oh, okay. I don't really know. And then continues. This is so crazy. So he's like, okay, we're going to leave here. We're going to go to this restaurant. Well, we can stop by your house and change. And this girl, she lived further away, didn't have an outfit. And I called my mom and I was like, I can't go to a restaurant and nightclub with this girl in this outfit. Like, Mom's like, just let her borrow something. We went to my house. I let this girl borrow clothes of mine because I didn't want her to she was like, looked like a wet dog. We had just been in the pool. She was like wearing a beach cover up and now we're going to dinner and going out. So the boys go to his house to change. She comes to my apartment, we change. And I just met the girl. We weren't really talking. So still at this point, I haven't talked to her directly about this guy, right? I'm just like, oh, we're having fun. We meet back up at the restaurant like 45 minutes later. And the way the table was set up, I realized like, oh, he's in between the two of us. And then at one point, the other guy says, okay, I got to run. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, wait, why is she not going with him? And that is when I realized that me and this girl were both on a date with the same guy at the same time. And apparently she already knew this, but I was just figuring it out. Again, I call my mom or I text her, my mom, and she's like, okay, that's so wild, but isn't this so New York? And you're at this like cool, we were at this restaurant that like we had like the chef's table and then there was like a nightclub that you had to go through the kitchen to get to. And I was so like mesmerized by that. My mom was like extra mesmerized and she was like, but this is gonna be a fun night. Why not? Who cares? So I continue. And mind you, I did have a huge crush on him, but I'm still figuring things out. I'm still sussing out the situation. At this point, I'm like, why not? Let's just continue the night. So night continues. We go to this little club and then he's like, okay, we're going to go to another spot. At some point, and I don't quite remember when, at some point the other girl taps out. And I'm not going to lie to you. I was kind of like, yes, I won. And that was 22-year-old me saying that. But yeah, I was like, okay, not that I won over her. It wasn't about her, but I was like, okay, like I'm sticking this out. We're going to have a good time. And again, I'm 22 at the time. I'm not thinking about long term, like where this is going. I'm like, it's just a fun night. So he takes me, he's like, okay, we're going to another spot. Mind you, I'm not going to get in trouble for saying this. The spot is the box, okay? If you've been to, I'm going to get in trouble for like, I don't think you're supposed to say what happens there, but fuck it. Whatever. We go to the box and we're able to get to the box very quickly, which is a hard door. And this guy is like, he's been in New York for a while. I did learn later that he was also dating the woman who worked the front door, but well, that's neither here nor there. So we go in, and mind you, again, I've only been in New York for 2 to 3 weeks, right? I have no idea what the box is. I'm still this fresh. I'm from Louisiana, New Orleans. Like, we see a little crazy, but nothing too crazy. And this man did not tell me what the box was. He did not warn me. And if you're not familiar with the box, it is an artistic show. Theoretically, I think legally it's an artistic experience, but it's highly sexual, a lot of things done for extreme shock value. I think you can fill in the blanks. Just whatever you think times 10 worse, that's what we're seeing at the box, okay? It's a lot. I was not prepared. And I'm trying to decide if I want to, well, if we think it's inappropriate, we can just cut it out. But the acts get aggressively more intense, let's say, as the night goes on. I text my mom as soon as I get in there, and I'm like, there are naked people on stage. And it wasn't in a burlesque way. I'm like, Mom, there are naked people on stage. Like, there are penises out on the stage. And she's like, that's wild. They do that in New York. And again, kind of encouraging me to stay. And the first act that I saw goes on, and it was a sexual act, and it was intense, but I was still in shock. Then something else happens, and again, I don't know if I'm allowed to like say any of this. They're never going to allow me back there. I'm trying to find a PC way to say this. There was a woman on stage who did a personal act, and there was a cocktail shaker involved, and that was served to the front row. I think you can figure out what was happening and fill in the blanks. Safe to say, I was a little overwhelmed, and I ran out of the box. When I say ran, I mean sprinted. It was a Cinderella moment. This man is chasing after me. Like, the cab is driving off before I've even closed the door, and I called my mom and I'm like, I can't believe it. And my mom is laughing at me. She thinks it's hysterical. And I'm rage texting this dude. I'm like, I am a Southern woman. I cannot believe you would bring me to this place and think that this was an okay date, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, I drew the line there and I was like, you will never see me again. He did see me again. And that was because, like I said, we did have a relationship before. We were friendly before. And he's blowing up my phone for like a couple days. And I say, okay, you can come over to apologize. And he comes over and I say, I want a written apology. And I still have it to this day. I should go get it. I had just moved in that apartment because I just moved to New York a couple weeks prior. On the back of the like lead paint certificate thing from my lease, he wrote me a note or an apology letter. And it was actually really good. A really nice apology letter. And he was like, I'm so sorry. Context being, he had been friendly with my brother years ago, and my brother maybe was not so kind to him, maybe bullied him a little bit back in the day. And so when he took me out, his intention originally was like, I'm going to get back at the student. I'm going to take his sister out. I'm going to make out with his sister. I'm going to sleep with his sister, whatever. And in his apology, he was like, I realized you were nothing like your brother who had bullied me in the past. And like, you're actually a really awesome person. I feel so bad that I was kind of taking this out on you. Cut to now it's 10 years later. Me and him are very close friends, but I drew a boundary, right? Lesson learned was I very quickly, like, I'm still for doing things for the plot, right? Doing things for the story. But I very quickly in that moment realized for myself, okay, I recognize that I don't like this person for me. Not that I don't like him, but that this is not the kind of person that I want to be with right now. Again, we were really young. So really what the lesson was is this is someone who's not ready. Someone who's playing games, who's still going out in that way, who's still doing the like kind of fuckboy stuff. Like they are not ready to be in a relationship. And I quickly realized that and then swapped it to a friendship because as I say all these things, how he was acting as a date, terrible, but I was also having a fantastic time. It was so much fun. He was fun. We were dancing and whatnot. And that was me realizing, oh, I like him. I don't like him as a partner. That's not going in this direction. And I think that is a beautiful lesson to learn and that I have taken since then is sometimes I meet people, I go on a date and I really do like them as a person, but I don't see them as being my partner. That doesn't mean I have to leave the date. It doesn't mean I have to never speak to them again. It just means, oh, I'm going to talk to them directly and say, hey, this is why we're not compatible, but I enjoy you being in my life. And I see that as 10 years later, this person is still in my life. We're very close friends. And he is an evolved, mature person now. Again, we were like 22 at the time, but I do think that's a fun story. And I will tell very quickly the second story because it is wild to me that it has happened to me twice where I've been on a date with someone who brought another girl on a date. And this is a guy who I dated. He is we won't say what sport, but he's an athlete. This guy, we had talked for like a few, maybe like 8 months. We were introduced through a friend and I was weary of him from the beginning because he was an athlete, which, look, I think in the past I've said, sleep with whoever, whenever you want, whatever. My rule of thumb, if it's an athlete, don't sleep with them. Just they have plenty of women willing to sleep with them at any given moment, especially if they play a sport where like basketball or whatever, where like their face is seen and women would recognize them. But like athletes, take your time. So nothing ever happened between me and this person more than a little like kissy here and there. And that is because he was an athlete and it was within good reason because I never thought we were dating exclusively, but this was before I knew to ask the question, oh, I know you don't have a girlfriend, but does anyone think you're their boyfriend? And I learned a couple months later that there was someone who thought that they were his girlfriend, and she ended up pregnant. So I was dating, excited, seeing where this was going. And then I get the call that this man had knocked somebody up, which happens, I guess. But how is this happening to me? And then cut to years later, he is no longer with this person. I'm married, divorced, whatever. We try to rekindle. And I remembered what had happened before. And I'm like, it's been 8 years. Maybe things are different. Things weren't different. Things were not different. And I didn't want to go on a proper date with him because of the past. And I said, you got to prove yourself. Why don't you meet up with me? I'm going to be here with some girlfriends. Come meet up for a drink. And it was during Thanksgiving. So he had told me he was going to a Friendsgiving party before, and then he'd meet me for drinks after. Turns out he picked someone up at the Friendsgiving party and then had the nerve when he met up with me to say, when I'm like, well, who is this girl? First of all, I should say I was very kind to the girl because this was not her fault. She didn't know what she was walking into. He was dogging her too. He was bringing her into some craziness too. So when they walk into the bar we're at, he hands me his credit card and I ask her what she wants to drink as well because he didn't even ask her what she wanted to drink. And I'll never forget going to the bar and there was a couple that was sitting at the bar who were watching all this happen and they very quickly connect all the dots. I go up to the bar. I was with 2 girlfriends. So there was the 3 of us plus this guy, the athlete who showed up and the girl he brought. So that's 5. So I go up to the bar and I say, give me 5 shots of your most expensive tequila. And he's like, well, I mean, the most expensive, it's like $65. I said, perfect. 5 of those. And the couple that was sitting next to me at the bar was the girl like kind of gives me a little elbow and she was like, we're watching what's happening and like, good for you, girl, like good for you. And I said, sir, make that 7 shots of your most expensive tequila. And that's what we did. We took a few shots. We went to the next bar. And honestly, at this point, I had, again, decided in my mind, oh, this person is not for me. He already dug himself a hole, but I was curious and it was kind of fun to see what was going on. So I took my emotions out of it. I wasn't expecting anything, but I did want to see what would happen. And this man, to my face, was like, well, I want to go home with you, but if you don't go home with me, I'll go home with her. But like, you're the main one, as if that was some sort of prize. I should say I can't believe it, but I can, because men can be like that. But dating horror story number 2B, I guess that would be, is this guy, again, bringing another girl on a date. And this poor girl, he was saying all this in front of her. She could hear about it. I don't know why. I mean, she was a lot younger than me. So I think she was the me at 22 being like, okay, well, maybe this is a fun time, whatever. But I can't fucking believe that. It happened to me twice. If it happened to me twice, it can happen to you. So moral of the story is, don't feel bad if a guy is dogging you or you're in a bad situation or on a bad date, because it really does happen to all of us. And we're all guilty of maybe going a little too far into something that we shouldn't, right? Okay, date horror story number 3. It's really not even a date. It's a mini relationship. And I just told my producer I didn't want to tell this story because I don't want to give this man any credit, but it's a good learning lesson. So we're not going to say his name. I don't care about protecting his privacy. I just don't want to give him any unsolicited press because he doesn't need that. Because we don't give gifts to men that don't deserve it. But this man, this is a story about a love bomber. And it's crazy that I went almost 32 years and I had never dated a love bomber before. And, I was still getting over my previous breakup. That was pretty hard for me. I know you guys watched that episode and I got a lot of responses that you guys it resonated with you. So I appreciate that. And this guy, when I met him, or I should say he slid into my DMs. He had seen some stuff from Super Bowl and was like, oh, you're my dream girl, blah, blah, blah. Was giving me the full court press, which I love. I'll be honest. I'm like, a love bomber to some degree is my type. My type is obsessed with me. I don't want to be with someone who isn't super into me, in the same way that like when I'm with someone, I'm really into them. That's just how I am. So I want that reciprocated. So I knew I was being love bombed to a degree, but I'm also, maybe that's me being a little bit cocky. I'm like, of course you're in love with me immediately. Like, why wouldn't you be? I'm incredible. Like, why not? And that's how I want someone to feel about me. But I also, the man had told me he loved me before we met in person. But I took it as he's just excited, right? We don't have all the words for everything. And he's just, what he really means is he's in puppy love and he's excited and whatnot. And I never said it back. I did tell him I wanted to slow things down. And it was really more of like, I said, I'm still getting over my last relationship. I'm feeling these feelings for you, but like I'm not 100% sure if the feelings I'm feeling are because I'm really into this new person or because, oh, this new person is filling a void that I had previously, right? Because it's that early on, it's hard to tell. You're still getting to know someone. And I had a bunch of friends be like, oh, he's a love bomber, be careful. And my understanding of love bombing is, it's not a good thing, but it's a worse thing if you don't know that it's happening. But I was very aware that that's what was happening. So I told my friends, I'd be like, I know that he's love bombing me, but I don't care because I've never gotten to experience it. I've never gotten to date someone who just, I've always dated people who were really into me, but I had never gotten to date someone who just was like all in like that. Like they're buying gifts and obsessed and they're like talking about the future. And it is exciting. Did I put all my eggs in that basket? Absolutely not. But I was having fun. He's buying me, diamonds, tennis bracelets, taking me and my friends out. I was enjoying it. But I was still being very aware of the red flags. And the biggest red flag was that his ex was pretty present. And he described it as, oh, she's, when I'd be like, oh, you guys are like liking each other's photos and like commenting, or like it's a text message. And he was just like, oh, it's because, he described her as the girl who like couldn't let go. And first time around, I gave him essentially I said a warning, or not even a warning. No, I gave him an out. Second time was a warning. First time I gave him an out, and I said, okay, because his ex was still like kind of floating around. And I said, I don't do love triangles. I just don't. I will not compete with an ex. And I know I've said before, you can't expect someone to be exclusive early on. That's not what I'm saying. I do think there's a big difference between dating someone who is getting to know other people and dating someone who is still involved with their ex, because their ex has plenty of time, in this case, years of experience with the person. They know what to say to bring them back. I'm not competing with that. Also, in this particular situation, what was described to me was, look, I'm a woman who I take care of myself. I pay my own bills, whatnot. This was a woman who he was taking care of financially. And I said to him, I'm not going to compete with a woman who needs you. I don't need this man. So I don't need to bend things. I don't need to make sacrifices. I don't need to make compromises in order to bring this man into my life, right? She might be more willing to. And I said, that's not something I'm willing to compete with. And I said, if you have loose ends to tie up, you should go off and do that. And then if you figure out that that's not for you and you come back to me and I'm still single, then we can talk. He was like, no, absolutely not. Like, you're right. I need to set stronger boundaries, blah, blah, blah. Great. Happens again. Ex comes up. I set another boundary and I say, okay, at this point, like, look, I understand where she's coming from because I've been her, right? I've been her. This isn't her fault. And I said to him, at some point, you are going to have to make a decision. And I'm telling you, the point is now. You get to decide. You get to hurt her feelings or hurt my feelings, because at this point, there's only one choice. Of course, she's still reaching out to you. Of course. And I was obviously aware that he was doing things at the bare minimum, to make her feel comfortable to do that. And I said, you got to draw a line in the sand. And I also said to him, most importantly, I said, if I'm giving you an out right now, right? I'm giving you my line right now. If this happens again, I will not be around. He said, I told him, I said, I won't give you time to explain. I won't give you any sort of like leeway or a second chance, because we've had this conversation multiple times now. I said, I'll be out. I'll just block, delete, never talk to you again, because I don't do any of that. Because right now you're making a promise to me, and I'm telling you in real time that this is an important promise to me that you have to make. If you can make it, great. If you can't, see ya, and we don't have to date. Again, he's like, all in, we're going for it. Great. Cut to, I take a trip with one of my girlfriends. He's calling me every single day. He's sending, flowers and champagne to my room, the whole thing, checking in. I'm like, great. Okay. And mind you, this relationship was moving faster than I wanted it to, and that I was ready for. And I told him that, but I also said, okay, I'll catch up. He wanted to be exclusive. I wasn't sure about doing that. And I was like, okay, I'll catch up. We become exclusive. And really, it was more because I was like, okay, this man is presenting to me, again, as within those first 90 days, this man is presenting to me that he has certain qualities that I would like to see in a man. So he's still in the running. I'm on this trip with my girlfriend. He's sending all these gifts and whatnot. And then Tinks talks about this, if you listen to her podcast, The Shift, right? He didn't say anything, the switch, is it the switch? I think it's the switch, where he just turned. It was the most minute change in his behavior, but I immediately picked up on it. It was like, when a guy is calling you pet names, at this point, he's calling me baby, babe, whatever. I just noticed, for one, that just between, was like a Tuesday and a Wednesday, he wasn't calling me babe. And it just, because of how he talked to me previously, I just noticed that something was off. And I kind of let it go. And the next day, same thing. We end up having a conversation. And this man has done a full 180 on, now he's like, well, I don't know if I want to be exclusive right now. work is going this way, and I thought this was going to happen, and now this is going to happen. I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, what's going on? And I will admit, I was on the phone, I was more accommodating, and I was still trying to like suss out what was going on. And he had said, I have these things going on, but then I'm going to be in New York in a couple of months. And then maybe we can like see what's going on there. And I did tell him in real time, I'm not sure how I feel about that. I'm not sure about how I feel about sticking a pin in it and then coming back to it, because it wasn't about, oh, he doesn't like me. It's the shift of you were all in, you were talking to me about having babies with me. I was not really reciprocating, but you were talking about having babies with me and all the things you wanted me to meet your mom and this and that. And then over the course of 2 days, all of a sudden now you want to like slow things down, go in reverse and not be be exclusive and whatnot. And it was towards the end of the conversation that I go, wait, I just have to ask, have you been talking to your ex? And he says, no, I mean, well, yeah, but like, I've said to her what I'm saying to everybody else, which is like what I'm saying to you. And I'm in my head, the wheels start turning and I'm like, hold on. So you've talked to her already. If you're saying the same thing to her that you've said to everybody else, you've already spoken to her, but this is supposed to be someone you haven't been speaking to. Also, everybody else, who the fuck is everybody else? Who else do you need to tell that you're not moving into New York for a bit and you need to be selfish right now? I'm like, who are we talking about? And I ended that call with saying like, I am not sure really how I feel about this. I'm feeling really uncomfortable. I'm feeling emotional. I guess I just need to process this. Over the next couple of days, we weren't talking as much, but I was still being friendly and whatnot. And then I knew he was in Miami. And I just again, that thing with the ex came up and I just had an inkling to go and look at her Instagram and see if she was in Miami. And she had posted a picture of her at a beach with a wristband on that just so happened to be a very similar wristband to the wristband that this guy was wearing in the photo he had just posted. And girls, we are FBI agents. I took screenshots of those two Instagrams. Actually, I don't even think I took the screenshots. I think I just sent a group text to my 3 closest girlfriends who had also met this guy. And I was like, what do we think's going on here? And when I tell you, my girls went to work. They were asking ChatGPT. They were reverse Google image searching. They were doing all the things. They're checking their Instagrams. Very quickly, it turns up that he is definitely in Miami with his ex-girlfriend. So I ask him point blank, I say, hey, did you want to go backwards and be unexclusive because you wanted to fly your ex out to Miami? And immediately he's like, that's so wild. Absolutely not. Whatever, is denying it. And I have to say, his denial was a pretty short text message. And this is a man who was sending me letters, like swipey, like the whole thing. So I know that I'm like, okay, he must be lying if he's like keeping it short. Again, he's denying it. And then a few more pictures get posted, and I regret this. I had apologized to him at one point because he did give me this, ended up giving me this profuse, I can't believe you would think that of me kind of thing. And I would be lying if I said I didn't feel a little bit bad. I second-guessed myself. I second-guessed my own judgment. But then the following day, it was undeniably clear that he was, in fact, in Miami with this girl. So what did I do? I sent him a text. I should read it verbatim. Actually, you know what? I'm going to read this text verbatim. He said, we are so not fine. Because I guess the last message I sent was like, oh, we're fine. Like, we'll talk about it later. I said, we are so not fine. You diabolical piece of shit. I take back every nice and forgiving thing I said to you. You are with your ex, and you thought I was dumb enough to believe a word you said. You should have listened to your mom and your friends. Bye. You're blocked. The end. And that is how you text a man who fucking wrongs you. And I sent that text. I blocked him on everything. I blocked his phone number. I blocked his Instagram off of all my stuff. I texted all my friends that had met him, that were following him, and I just sent a group text and I said, we'll talk about it later. Unfollow, insert his name. And immediately, no questions asked. Everyone's like, knows they're going to get the download the next time we're at a group dinner. Immediate unfollow. And so this guy gets that text message, and then I know he cares about who's following him, immediately gets unfollowed by all my friends. And, ooh, do I tell this? Yeah, you heard it here first. I fucking hey girly the ex-girlfriend. I sure as shit did. And if she watches this, then she'll know. And that's because she'll know who I am. And say, I did hey girly. This is maybe a little bit controversial, but I'm going to be honest about it. I hey girlied her from my burner account. And the reason I did this is not because I wanted to hide myself, but because I have been the girl in her position. And once you know who the other person is, like actually know physically who they are and their name, and you can like look them up, it is so hard not to. And that's the kind of anxiety as a woman that I would never want to put on another woman. So I DM'd her from my burner account. And according to that guy, she was supposed to have known who I was, because he had been saying to me, oh, she knows that I'm dating someone new. She's just anxious and she's just trying to get back with me and whatever. So I said, hey, I just want you to know, me and so-and-so have been seeing each other. He says who I am or whatever, but if in case you don't, so therefore, if you have any specific questions, you can DM and, I would answer everything. Otherwise, I said, I blocked him. Like, girl, if you want to take that, that's all yours. I'm not interfering, but you should know. And her first response, I quickly realized timeline-wise was not aligned. Because she had said something about, oh, I did know he was seeing other people, but since we've been trying to see if we're going to work out, whatever. And I realized, oh, she's not realizing the timeline. And I was like, oh, sweetheart, no. I was with him on Monday and he flew you to Miami on Thursday. So this isn't months apart. We didn't, end things and then you guys started your thing. I broke up with him because I found out that he was in Miami with you. And she hadn't responded to that message, but I do believe, based on happening since, that she ended up getting the hint. And good for fucking her, because she also deserves so much better than someone who's going to treat her like that and go behind her back like that, because I am, no matter what, always first and foremost a girl's girl. But I did have some friends who weren't sure about me doing the hey girly or messing the girl at all. And one person actually was the guy who said this, was like, oh, well, then it's going to look like you care. And you don't want him to care if you care. I'm like, I care so little about this man's opinion that I don't care if he thinks that I care. I don't. It's more important to me that the girl can make a decision, a good decision for herself, knowing all the facts. Because I sure as shit know he's not telling her any of the facts, right? And the moral of this story really is that, look, I did really like this guy and I was excited about him. And we did start to have a relationship and start talking about potential future plans and whatnot. But I have my own boundaries and I have respect for myself and I have, just basic human decency as well. And as soon as he, I shouldn't even say as soon as he showed his true colors, because again, I'm human. I want to give someone the benefit of the doubt, especially if I like them. I gave the guy a couple tries, but that third strike, my mom gave me this advice years ago. And she said, if you're going to give a man an ultimatum, you better be ready if he calls your bluff. If you say, if you do X, I'm going to leave, he does X, you better fucking leave. Because if you don't, he's going to keep doing it over and over again. And I told this man, this is my boundary. I told him again, this is my boundary. If you cross it again, I'm gone. And I think this is a person who probably has been told certain boundaries before and gotten away with it. And I'm probably the first, if not one of the first women to actually hold him accountable in that way. And he crossed the boundary. And I did exactly what I told him I was going to do, which was I didn't give him a chance to explain. I didn't give him a chance to talk himself out of it. I blocked him. And another thing I had told him when I said, you got to make a choice and you're going to have a conversation with her and tell your ex, what the situation is. And I said to him at the time, I said, if you don't hurt her feelings, I will. I'll be the one to tell her because someone's got to. And that's, again, I did exactly what I said I was going to do. I blocked him, I broke up with him, and I told his ex-girlfriend. Hate me all you want. I probably will get some hate for doing him like that. But guess what? I walked out fine. I walked out knowing my own self-worth and knowing what I was bringing to the table and knowing that I respected myself. And I also know that I gave this woman an opportunity to respect herself, giving herself all the facts. And as far as I know, she also left him. So who knows? And look, this is not to say this man is like a horrible man to his core, but he's a man who's gotten away with doing a lot of BS for a long time. And he wasn't going to get away with that with me. And let's see, the way I've told these stories, they've kind of been in order timeline wise. And I think you can probably see based on what happened in these, how over time I have learned to have stronger boundaries, but also not become so attached. This most recent story, I was dating this guy for maybe 2 months by the time this happened. And it's not easy to cut someone off like that when you've, gone 2 months down the line. You're sharing stories, you're sharing, you're planning life stuff together, planning trips and whatnot, but it needed to happen. And the moral of the story for all of these things, and it's something I say to people all the time, is get out when you know you need to get out. I think we're also worried, especially dating in our 30s, about wasting time. The biggest waste of time is continuing to date someone that you know is not your person, is continuing to date someone that you know is affecting you negatively. And in this case, this person was affecting me negatively. I knew it wasn't the right relationship for me. I knew it wasn't what I wanted. I said, I got to get out. And for me, knowing I was that far in, there's some people I don't need to like block them and do whatever. But for this person, I need to do that. I said, I need to get out because I knew he was the kind of person who's going to ring my phone off the hook, keep calling me, keep trying to explain himself. And I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to get sucked back in. And I know that I'm the kind of person who will give someone the benefit of the doubt and want to hear their story. It was like, I don't need to hear this. I know what's happening and I'm not going to let someone convince me otherwise, because then what's going to happen? I'm going to like get dragged back into it for 2 to 3 more months before he does some other stupid shit again. And then I'm going to have to deal with that. I'd rather not waste my time. And neither should you. None of us should be wasting our time. And that's not to say that everything needs to be exclusive all the time. What's crazy, if he's listening, if this man had just said to me, hey, I still got some loose ends with my ex, or I'm still a little unsure, or like, I really do like you and I want to see where things go with you, but I'm also still a little unsure about what's happening here. And I'd like to see how I can maybe pursue both, or I can, what is comfortable for you? Not to say I want to be pursued in both ways, but I did give this man an out and I said, you can go back to your ex and figure out if that's a loose end you need to tie up, do what you need to do. And then if I'm still single when you're done with that, if you're done with that, there is not enough hard feelings here, or would not be enough hard feelings here for me to say absolutely not. Now, what happened? He did everything the exact opposite as he should have. And now I would never give him a second chance, because why would I? Like, I know he doesn't tell the truth. And that's the number one thing. I need someone to be honest with me. So suffice to say, get out while you can. Don't drag it out. And sometimes you need to pull the ripcord and you need to make it dramatic. And who cares if someone else thinks you're dramatic? If it's dramatic to block someone, to hey girly their ex, who cares? If it's going to make you feel better, if it's going to make things easier for you. He wasn't worried about making your life easy. Why should you worry about making his life easy? Right? Not to be like, I'm not trying to dog all men, because, now I'm going to tell my producer I'm going to have to do another episode where I tell good dating stories, because I really have dated a lot of really good men. But the one thing I'm really proud of for myself is I've learned that when I figure out that I'm dating a not great man, I end it immediately. Because I say this all the time, I'm way more afraid of being in a relationship with someone that I know I should not be with long term than I am of being alone. And we should all feel that way. And it's normal to feel afraid of being alone. No one wants to end up alone. I am afraid of that. That's a natural fear. But I am way more afraid of being stuck with someone who treats me poorly, who doesn't value me, who doesn't see me the way I want to be seen, things like that. And that's what we should be focused on. So I'll leave you girls with that. Girls and guys, I'll leave you guys with that. Just focus on not even just being selfish. Be selfish at the beginning, yes. No, be selfish. Focus on what you're looking for, and focus on doing things that are going to make you feel good, the person that you're supposed to be with they won't mess it up. They just won't. And the people that do mess it up, it's a story. You get to tell it on a podcast one day. You get to tell it to your friends over drinks or over mocktails if you don't drink, whatever it is. And then we all get a good laugh, and it's a good story. So I guess that's the other additional piece of advice would be like, if you're going to end it, that if you're on a bad date, if it's a really bad date in an unsafe way, of course, just fucking leave. The first story I told, I've never spoken to that guy ever again. I never would. There's no point. Stories 2A and 2B, they're still people that I'm friends with because the bridge wasn't burned. And story 3, yeah, I'll probably never speak to that person again or talk to them again, but that's fine. I don't look back at this like most recent guy, for example. I don't look back and regret anything. I don't regret doing it. It was fun while it lasted. I got to like have a fun experience. I enjoyed it along the way. And I'm able to say I don't look back on it as this horrible, regretful thing, because as soon as I got to a point where I was like, oh, I'll start doing things that I will regret, I left. I was out. That's how you protect yourself and your emotions. And that's how you stay on track in terms of finding what you're looking for in the long term, is cutting out what isn't for you, right? Right. So that's my advice. Take it or leave it. Those are my stories. I hope you enjoyed, a laugh out of some of my misery. And I will see you guys next week on another episode of the It Girls Guide. Bye.